Trenton 365 with Jacque Howard. Profiling the businesses, organizations, and people that make Trenton better.
You know what the easy thing that's already set up?
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Trenton 365 show. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. You are listening over WIMG 1300, over our website as well, WIMG1300.com. And if you're watching, it's over WPHY Channel 25, Mercer County, New Jersey. And you can find out more about Trenton 365 by visiting our Facebook page, Trenton 365 Show, and our website, Trenton365.com. In the studio with us live in direct is Ray Brown. Ray Brown is a long-term friend. He's a Trentonian. He's a fashion designer and someone who I consider a mentor of mine in the fashion industry. Ray, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome. And so, Ray, you've been doing a lot the last the last month or so. Yeah. But I want to give the audience a little bit of background information about you and about fashion in general, and then we'll roll into the current events. So give a little biography of who Ray Brown is.
Ray Brown is the designer of Vincente menswear and Diva Ray womenswear. Started with womenswear initially back in the 80s, stopped it for a good while, and started up the menswear line in 2009, which is the line that's still going live today. Restarted the women's wear line last year, as a matter of fact, in 2016, right? No, 2015, and have been moving along with that now. It's the menswear line is a sportswear line of high fashion menswear separates. So right now we're just preparing for our spring-summer 2017 showing, which will be in September. And the next Diva Ray line would also debut in September.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to jump around a little bit talking about Diva Ray and also Ray Vincent.
That's fine.
But I want you to tell the audience about why you brought Diva Ray back.
I was threatened. I was threatened by my sisters and by all the different women in my life to bring back the women's wear line when they saw the menswear line was going on and getting more popular. So I'm starting it off in a small way, starting it off doing specialty pieces here and there, not a full line as of yet, as I kind of work my way back into it, because it's been a long time, actually. So yeah, that's kind of why that started again. We're still working on some of the concepts of that, but yeah, I got threatened. Yeah.
Nothing like family to keep you in check.
Yeah. They said, okay, you've had this menswear thing for a while. When we getting our stuff back? So. It was going to happen sooner or later.
Awesome. So let's transition back to the menswear line.
Right.
So the menswear line, Ray Vincent, is very progressive, I would like to call it.
Yes.
And it's got a lot of traction outside of the United States. Yes. Can you just talk about like the aesthetic, what the Ray Vincent line looks like?
It is very eclectic, I say, is the best word I would come up right off the bat with it. It borrows from multiple different backgrounds, both European, South African, as well as Asian backgrounds. It also brings in a bit of an urban edge, because that's part of my background. Mm-hmm. So that particular line has these pieces that can be worn separately, worn together. You can wear them. A lot of people dress them up. You can wear them dressed down. I prefer casual, so I'm definitely in them quite a bit just casually. But you can take some of the same pieces and just kind of bounce them up. Like natural fibers are like my favorite colors, or like the blues. Definitely got to have black and white in there. And coming up, some golds and whites coming in as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And we're going to move back now and talk about the beginning of Ray Brown. When you first realized, hey, I kind of have a knack for this thing of making clothes and tailoring and sewing, etc. Talk about your early days in fashion.
Well, I would say that I was generally a good kid, except for when my clothes didn't match. For some reason, I was a little upset when that happened. And so after a while, my parents kind of gave up and said, okay, look, wear what you want to wear. And I kind of got into it that way. But my sister Sylvia taught me how to sew years ago, probably because I think I was a teenager at the time. And I kind of got into it because I really didn't find stuff that I liked after a while, especially after a trip to Paris. So I went to Paris, stayed there for a little while in the 80s, came back, and couldn't find anything here that really spoke to me the way Paris, and I think we were also in Italy, and Rome and so forth. And so I got back and I started just kind of putting together things that kind of fit what I liked. And after a while, I just as I learned how to sew better, I started just making a number of things I liked and then making them for other people. Not really sure how I got into women's wear initially right off the bat because I was really going for myself. But that's more so where I moved into that point, and there was always some piece that was made specifically for me. So it kind of built out of there.
Awesome. And how can people find out more about you, get in contact with you, and view your collections?
Best place is probably on rayvincent.com, but you can also find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter and also on Instagram. So on Instagram, I believe it's rbrown006us. For Twitter, it's Ray_Vincent. And just type in Ray Vincent in Facebook, and you'll pretty much find a lot. Other than that, type in Ray Vincent on Google, and I'll show up everywhere.
Awesome. And folks, all the information and archives of this will also be on the Trenton 365 Show Facebook page. And there'll be some other things listed there regarding fashion and some things that Ray has been doing with me and in partnership with me. And Ray, I want you to talk a little bit about what took place Father's Day weekend.
Oh, wow.
In June.
Okay. This was the first for me, even I haven't been in Trenton all these years, but this was a event sponsored by you, right, frankly, but part of an event that's been going on for, I believe, about 10 years, and that's Art All Night. They decided to open the event itself with a fashion show, which I thought was really a great way to introduce fashion to the art aspect of it, because it had not been done before in this fashion. So we got it together, and I think we got it together in probably about 3 or 4 weeks. It seemed like, if that much, working with Willie Hall, who's out of New Brunswick, and my line for the menswear line, friend of yours who you know,
Nacone Martin.
Yes, Nacone Martin, who did something very smart, fitness wear, or active wear as it's considered these days, because that's a very big market. So we put all three of us into a show. It was well attended. It was well received. Both Willie and I did what we call capsule collections, just small 5 to 6 piece collections that could represent what we did. And I'm still hearing about that show, which is very surprising. But it was very gratifying to do that in my hometown.
That's awesome. So one of the things that I wanted to do with the event at Art All Night is to showcase the art of fashion.
Exactly.
And there was no better way for me to do that than to work with you, who I've known for a long time, and also Nacone,
Yes.
who I went to high school with, and she was my high school prom date. And then knowing Willie Hall through you.
Yes.
So it was a perfect synergy, in my opinion.
Yes.
And just talk a bit more about the art of fashion.
Well, that's really the part that I think some people miss sometimes, especially over here. We tend to, over in the New York area, New Jersey area, we tend to focus more on the business of fashion. Overseas, they focus a lot more on the art of fashion, and that's the creativity that each individual designer brings to their line. Way back when, every individual line, every individual designer had their own look. And you went towards the designers that whose look or whose aesthetic you liked. Then after a while, it became a bit more commercialized, so it became just whatever sells. There is a movement now back to what it was originally, which is the individualism, because you're not going to like every single designer, but you should be able to go to a designer that or more than one whose pieces you have liked over and over and over again, and that speak to your individuality and who you are as a person, to be able to find pieces that fit into your lifestyle.
And I'm glad you said that, because we're going to get into talking a bit more about the business side of fashion, and something that you've always been outspoken about. But the creativity aspect of fashion, it seemed that for a long period of time, I would say well over a decade, it seemed as though mainstream fashion was very stagnant.
It was, and it was criticized for being so, because and because it was stagnant in a creative way, it actually affected the business side, because what happens, people just stop buying. And they would go to stores, they would see the same thing over and over again. The other part of it is that women who were able to buy clothing and so forth would find that the clothing were only made for kids. And yet the women who were buying it were in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and so the proportions were off, or the things were in such a way that when you were 15 you could wear it, but now people would look at you and say, "Oh, poor child." So, they lost that aspect. And when they started realizing, okay, wait a minute, the buying public is actually the women who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s and so forth, as far as who will pay for good clothing. And so they started going more towards that. The other thing is that they started bringing in other cultures, which to a large extent we really didn't know a lot about in the United States. And so you got fashion weeks in Canada, you got fashion weeks in South Africa, you have a fashion week now over in Ghana. All of these different places are bringing their own aesthetic, and of course Asia. And now, because we're all internet, it's such a global economy and such a global fashion world, you get to see all that. And it was much harder to see that way back when.
That's fantastic. Now, Ray, I want you to stick with something that you touched on and we've talked about before. And I'm speaking with Ray Brown, and his line is Ray Vincent, and that's spelled VINCENTE.com, and there you can see all his fashions. You can also go to the Trenton 365 Show Facebook page. Links will be there as well. And Ray, we've been talking for the last year or so very, very strongly about the body type movement. For many years, everyone wanted to have skinny jeans, no shape, no form, just stick figures. Can you rehash some of our conversation?
Well, that was another thing that hurt the industry, because you built clothing, both men and women actually, you built clothing for people that were basically hangers. They were just straight up and down, they had no shapes, and even if you bought it in your size, it still didn't fit, because it didn't conform, for example, to a woman's curves. Most women have curves, and so darts were eliminated at one time, but darts are what fit an outfit to a person, so they brought that back. Men, originally you had to be an Amazon, I call it, an Amazon male. You had to be 6'2", and you had to be probably a 38 jacket, 32 waist. I ain't seen that now. I don't know how long. So, and so I went ahead. So now what people are going ahead and doing is realizing that, oh, wait a minute, I'm in my 20s, or in my 30s rather, I'm built differently than I am in my 20s, even if I'm in shape. Our bodies fill out. That's just the way it is. And so they started making clothing that gave a little bit more room, that gave a little bit more stretch, as opposed to the ones that only fit your 14-year-old son. So it's who quite frankly generally has no money. So that really didn't help very much. Now the body types are changing. They call them the big beautiful models. I just call them actually normal sized people that are able to go and go on, that you're seeing on the runways now. You're seeing size 12, size 14, size 16s on the runway now, because these are real size people. And these are the people who are buying the clothing. For the men, you're starting to see the men a little shorter. You're starting to see a man a little taller. You have a mixture. I don't know about you, but I don't particularly care for an athletic fit shirt, t-shirt, because I am not, the 8-pack abs is gone. It's a memory, and it ain't coming back. So I want to make sure I have some clothing that looks good on my body, that fits my body, but I don't necessarily want my clothing to molest me by grabbing me so hard. So it just keeps it better that way.
And I love how you say that, and I think I cracked up the last time you said that. You want your clothes to fit.
Yes.
But you don't want them to molest you.
No, exactly. I mean, that when you're constantly pulling things down, because some lumps and bumps show up later on for men and women, by the way, in case people don't know. We all shift and shade, and I talked to you before. I say, skinny jeans is a joke to me. I once told you before, if no one has ever called you skinny jeans are not for you. And so when you're going through all of these things, you're trying to try these things on, because I tried on skinny jeans before. I forgot one big thing, my butt. So to make sure that it wasn't going to fit there, so I said, okay, forget that. And so I started cutting some pants that actually had roundness in the back, because, hey, that's what a number of men and women have, and that have stretch, so that when you sit down to eat, there's not this belt pushing against your gut saying, don't you eat one more bite. You actually get to enjoy and be comfortable. And when you get back up, the clothing just shapes back into it. So it's clothing that makes sense now, which is what it used to be. And fortunately now it's going back to.
And when you say clothing that makes sense, you also turned me on to some things that are happening in textiles.
Yes.
Can you speak about that a bit more?
Yeah, you have, everybody always loves natural fibers. Problem is natural fibers are more expensive. So if you get natural fibers, what's happening now is that there's a lot of mixture with things like spandex, lycra, that allow the clothing to maintain its shape. Because one of the problems we would have, for example, with a t-shirt is that after a while it gets stretched out of shape if it's just a cotton t-shirt. But when you mix in things like lycra or a little spandex, it snaps back into shape. And it wears better and holds color even better after a long time. We all know what happens with a white t-shirt after a while. It's going to go dingy and gray and so forth, and you have to throw it away and can't get another one. With some of these other fibers, it's when they're mixed in just enough, like 3% here, 5% there, you'd be surprised at the longevity of the outfit and the wearability of the outfit.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the business of fashion, something, again, that you've been very outspoken for many years. I mean, I'm going to go back and say when I modeled for you, that was over 30 years ago. Yeah. Was it 30? Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it was over 30 years ago.
Yes, it
was. And even back then, you were very pronounced in letting people know about the business side of fashion. Yeah. Just talk about that a bit, please.
And I think that's probably the one when people are going into fashion design or people are going into modeling or whatever the case may be, you see all the glitz and glamour, but you don't realize all the work that went behind it to get there and why people do what they do. There's even a reason why models are selected at a certain size and all models are the same size in the show. One is it's cheaper to make the samples if the samples are all made in the same size. So if you are a designer who has decided that your clothing line is going to fit a 4, or your samples will fit a 4, all your models have to be in a 4 because you're not going to make them in different sizes. For the runway, you're going to make them in one size. So that's part of the business of fashion. The other thing, for example, is realizing that what the purpose of a fashion show is. A number of people figure that it's just for entertainment. No, a fashion show is your selling tool. So when you go to New York Fashion Week or you see it on TV or what have you, you see a number of people. They're not sitting there applauding. They're sitting there writing down things. There are buyers in the audience. There are media in the audience. There are celebrities in the audience. And these are all the people you want there who will market your line and who will buy your line such that you can continue to operate for the following year. So that makes sense as well. Fashion merchandising is the thing a lot of people don't hear about, but fashion merchandising, the fashion business would be dead without fashion merchandising. You can have the greatest product in the world if nobody knows it exists. It really doesn't matter. And so what they're doing there is they're going in, they're finding out what are the trends, what are the colors people are buying. You may have heard of the Pantone colors. They come out every year. Who does them? I'm really not saying. But they decide, okay, these are the colors that are big this year. All the designers in mainstream pay attention to that, and they make pieces, or at least incorporate some pieces that have some of those colors into it, because the editors of Vogue, the editors of Marie Claire, and all these type of things are going to be looking for that to make sure that you do. Once again, that's also marketing and saying it may be simply as, okay, we want this new fabric is coming out. We want everybody to try it, so we're going to mention this fabric, and everybody throws a little bit of it into their piece. So it's all ultimately about business. You know, the creativity is great, and the creativity is necessary. Sometimes we forget that part, but the fashion business does not exist if it's not a business. And so we have to make sure that though we're making something, can somebody wear it? Does it fit your core audience? Do you know who your core audience is? All of those types of things. And so that, and all that goes into your planning, and you have to incorporate that with your design concept, so that if you want to stay in business.
And it's interesting that you brought up the Pantone colors. My time working in the garment industry, I learned a lot of the business, the production end of it, the retail aspect of it, and sharing those tidbits with my audience. People are always amazed when they say, oh, well, I went to the store and these were the selection of colors that were there. And they think I bought that color. No, that's what was decided.
Yeah, that was decided for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a part in the movie that I love, one of the movies that I love, The Devil Wears Prada. And she goes through this whole dissertation. Meryl Streep is going through this whole dissertation, but the dissertation she's going through is actually accurate. Where she said, you think you went and then just picked whatever color you want. No, you picked the color we decided for you, because that's what we made available. And it's fascinating when you think about that, because all you got to do is go and look at a store and you wonder, why am I seeing the same colors in every store? It doesn't matter who I go to. There's a reason for that. They're marketing that particular color. And if you're a store that wants to sell to the public, you better have that color in there because all the media is going to say, oh, this is all the rage. This is all, you know, we probably hear things like the new black. Well, there's really no new black. But that's what they're saying is this is the new neutral. This is the new basic. And it gets into people's head, and the first thing they do is go into the stores looking for that color. If you don't have it, they think you're not up with fashion.
And I want you to talk a bit about how the business of fashion has the knockoffs. So a designer may come up with an original piece and may show that original piece. Right. And then a short time thereafter, something similar, not in as good of quality, is available in the general public. Yeah, and that, you know, as much as people try to fight against that, that's always going to happen. Smart designers have figured out, the ones that turn out collections every year, they knock themselves off. What they do is they'll go ahead and make a cheaper version of the piece that the fashionistas can afford, and they make it for the general public. It may be the fabric may be a little less quality. It may be the hardware has changed, which is typically one of the big things they do. They'll change the hardware. They've been doing it with bags for years. So they do it with their own clothing because they want to make it available to the masses. The other thing is that you have to make it cheaper you have to make it simpler to be able to mass produce it. So if you want 100,000 units of something, you know, you can't have a zipper that costs $5. You know, it's just not going to work. So you're going to go for something that's a little less expensive. Now, I want you to talk about manufacturing in the U.S. When I was working in the industry at Jones Apparel Group, Jones, New York, in the early 2000s, we stopped all of our manufacturing in the U.S. It was all outsourced,
sadly,
whether it was in Asia, South America, the Philippines, etc. But it seems as though there's a bit of a movement that's coming back. And can you talk about that a bit?
Well, there used to be this major pride thing called Made in America. And we had a number of my father came to Philadelphia many years ago before I was born. They went to Philadelphia because that's where the work was. What do you mean the work? Well, the factories were there. What were the factories making? A lot of them were making clothing. You had your suits made. You had these things made, and there is a movement now it moved overseas. Why? Because it's cheaper. That's really the long and the short of it. It's cheaper. But now there's a movement to bring it back here, because what happened is when we moved all those over there, we lost jobs. All of these people that were working, that are excellent in their skills, lost work. You know, it's hard now, even going into New York, finding places that can do that. So what's happening is that instead of the major big shops that make 100,000 units, now you're having a lot of smaller shops that will make, maybe 10 units as for something that for a new designer coming out, maybe 20, such that it makes it more sense to have it here. As a designer, you actually want your stuff made in the United States because it's easier to get to. You know, if I have to go over to China every other month, that gets expensive after a while, and you can't have hands-on to check the quality. But if it's right, if it's made in New Jersey and I'm in New York, I'm just going to bounce over anytime I feel like it, and we can talk things out and so forth. So what does that do? That also brings back jobs coming here. That brings back the need for people to be trained and skilled in how to do things like beading. Which we used to be excellent at. But hopefully that will bring back more jobs. Thus far, every piece I've had made has actually all been made in the United States. I've been told many times, when you get into mass marketing, you're going to need to send it overseas. I'd rather not if I don't have to. But you have to watch your price points. Is it more expensive to make it in the United States? Yes, it is. That's just a plain fact. We have a lot more rules that protect the employees that they don't have overseas. So that's why things are more expensive. And so you hear things like sweatshops and so forth. Yeah, those still exist. And there are children in places making clothes and hardly getting anything. If you don't want to feed that, then you look for something to have it here. I think a lot of designers are going to start just getting their own little manufacturing shops and having their stuff made right here, to the point where they can either bring in some other people who are trying to do that. That's something I would like to do as well.
And I'm glad you said that. And oftentimes, I think people are afraid to to toe that line or push that line.
Yeah.
And I think that you did a fantastic job of saying that. We used to be able to do it, and we did it well here and in the United States, and now we haven't.
Yes.
But we are damaging our personal economy, our local environment, etc.
Exactly.
And on top of that, it's not a feel-good story when we're wearing clothing that has been produced in a sweatshop where children are working there, etc. And like Ray said, that stuff still happens.
Oh, it still does. Not every single company. Don't get me wrong there, but it still does exist, and we don't police it because we're not over there. You know, so we don't know what comes over to us, how it got manufactured. We just know that we got what we paid for, per se. But when you have it here, you know that it's being protected, and you bring back a skill set. I mean, we were big producers of cotton, from which we made all jeans, everything that counted that. The big producer of cotton now is India. You know, and so all of our stuff is coming from over there. They did wonderful work and so forth, but I said, okay, guys, we know how to do that here. We've done it for years. And so, I think it's going to be a bit of sacrifice in not always trying to make the most money you can, but working responsibly. And I think companies that are much more socially aware will look and say, you know what, we can build jobs right here doing the same thing. We may have to pay our people a little more. We may have to make sure they have all the appropriate things. But guess what? If people are getting a quality product, they'll pay more for it.
That's fantastic, Ray. And I'm making notes here. Everyone knows that I like to write. That's why I always have a book or a pad or utensil and a writing utensil with me. But you've hit some really key points, man, about responsible fashion, about the business of manufacturing, generating an economy, etc. And we're here in Trenton, New Jersey, which is the tagline for our city is Trenton makes the world takes.
That's right.
And then I often think about, well, what are we really manufacturing?
Yeah.
And I think, okay, maybe Trenton could be a hub again for making some type of a fashion product, etc.
I mean, Trenton was a manufacturing town. That's why so many people came here. I speak to my minister from time to time, Brother Clarence Matthews. He came here because this is where he got to work. And if you look around Trenton, you'll see all of these manufacturing, all of these big buildings, warehouses and factories. Trenton Pottery. We used to have Trenton Pottery, Star Porcelain, which is still there, and all of these other places that we had. Where we had the show. They made wire. That's why it came from. Trenton makes the world takes. We really did. We still have some of these buildings. Some of them are sitting abandoned. Some of them are barely being used. And you sit there and you look at these things and said, okay, here we are right between New York, Philadelphia, and not too far from Washington, D.C. We're a perfect place to be a hub of manufacturing, even small lots. I would say if we got to the point where we had small companies that specialized in swimwear, that specialized in menswear, that specialized in this, specialized in that, or just specialized in an article of clothing. People from New York, as well as from Philadelphia and so forth, will, especially new designers who can't buy 100,000 units, will come and say, okay, you know what, I can have this made right here in Trenton. Trenton is easy for me to get to. I'm 35 minutes from Philadelphia. I'm about an hour and a half from New York. I can pop down any other time I want, and I can get the stuff made. So I think Trenton makes the world takes can very much be literally taken again if we decide that, okay, we know what, we're going to get back to our manufacturing, because when you make stuff, they said if you make it, people will come. So it's really